Man United have finally announced the news of Erik Ten Hag being their next manager for the next season, and it looks like it's going to be a big rebuild job for Man United. So me and Jimmy, say hello, Jimmy.
Bonjour.
We'll be going through who we think Ten Hag should be looking at signing for over the summer to try and basically revive this team. Jimmy, as the resident Man United fan, just quickly before we start, thoughts on the appointment of Ten Hag?
I've wanted him to be appointed over pretty much any manager on the market currently, or who we've been linked with. So I am happy with the appointment. It's what we do with the appointment that makes all the difference, and that's what we're going to talk about here. What should we
Yeah,
see?
it does look quite promising. Whether what's come out in the news today is true, he'll have 200 million to spend plus whatever he gets from selling players, and
I'm
apparently there's going to be a big overhaul of the players leaving, which
I'm
also
not
looks the case
confident.
with the contracts as well. But obviously, yeah, that is the problem. Is that we all know the Glazers can say one thing and
Yeah.
do another, which may be the problem.
Don't know what you're
But I
talking about.
think
Best owners in football. Period.
yeah, they
Mm.
definitely need to give this man time. That's the main thing. Is we've all seen what he can do at Ajax. He's had to rebuild that team so many times with losing key players. That he definitely can do the job, but we also
Yeah.
know that managers don't always get given the longest amount of time, or recently anyway, at the club to actually put their plan into action.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll go through positions. People we think of might not actually be everyone. Obviously, we can't overhaul the entire team, but come up with a few names for different options. Um, Goalkeeper. I was looking and I was struggling, if I'm honest, Jimmy, and
I have an
I've
opinion on the
come.
position, but I will hear what you say first.
Yeah. So before I say, both of the two names I've come up with are completely unrealistic. Will never happen. But it kind of, for me, explains like the way I think they should go. Because
Mm.
for me, De Gea should stay. Is what I'm going to say straight away. I think he's been one of Man United's best players over the season. He's still a great goalkeeper. Makes plenty of saves, and I think he's just been let down a lot by what's in front of him. Um, so for me, it's not an immediate position to look at to replace. I don't know if you think the same way.
Yeah, that is what I was holding on to. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
one position in the squad I wouldn't personally be in a rush to change. I think Ranić came out and said that is the one position in the squad that they shouldn't. It's like at the bottom of the pecking order. Um, I've seen people's opinions saying De Gea is not as good as everyone makes him out to be, and while that's true, I think there's parts of his game he can improve. Distribution, stopping the easy shots. Sometimes he struggles with, but he's not the problem.
I think the
Yeah,
problem as well is that he was so good at his peak that
yeah,
he's probably starting to slightly come down on that peak now. So he didn't seem as good, but he's still a good goalkeeper.
yeah,
And it probably also, because the standard is so high with the likes of Allison and Edison and Oblak in the league, those sort of players, that even a good goalkeeper nowadays doesn't look as good.
yeah.
And especially when you add in the fact that like Allison and Edison have that distribution and that ball play as well, that adds a whole another dimension to the game. It just puts them on a whole another level
Hmm.
and doesn't mean that a good goalkeeper isn't good anymore.
Yeah. Well, he's also, I believe, got the second most saves this season in the Premier
Correct.
League.
I believe you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I,
Which is a weird, I
you
always
know,
find is a weird stat because
it's
it's
a
one of
weird stuff.
those where like, yeah, it looks good to have lots of saves, but it also means that your team's probably also been shit.
Yeah, but
Like your defense.
that's what we're here to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah, my two
Yeah.
very unrealistic goalkeepers I came up with. The first one is Unai Simon from Bilbao. I like him. I think he's a good goalkeeper, but obviously with the transfer policy that Bilbao have, it's very unlikely we're to take someone away from them.
Mm.
Um, because obviously they, for those that don't know, they only have players from the Basque region in Spain. Um, so they would want to, if we're having a good player, they want to try and keep hold of him. And it's one of those things where I feel even if you offer them above and beyond the money that he's worth, it's probably not worth them to take the money, because it's not like they can use that money to go and buy anyone they want. They have their policy of who they want to keep, so they need to have someone lined up. So it's very unlikely that happen. The other one, again, very unlikely. But I think if they were to do anything around the goalkeeper position, this is what I imagine they'd sort of do. And it's actually Raheem Kelleher from Liverpool.
Mm.
Because it comes back to my fact that I don't think De Gea needs to be replaced, but more so they might want to bring someone in for the future.
And you
Obviously, they
just want to
have
get
Dean
rid of
Henderson.
Kelleher.
I I think Henderson's a good goalkeeper and could still fill that job, but I feel like someone like Kelleher, who's a bit younger than him, and also has proved himself at that top level. That, like, for Liverpool, he's been that Carabao Cup goalkeeper. He had a clean sheet in the Carabao Cup final. That he's proved that he can do it at that high level as well. That he'd be a great understudy to continue probably being a cup goalkeeper for Man United, but also be able to learn from De Gea as well and be ready to step in when he needs to. But again, obviously with who he plays for, and the fact that if he's going to move anywhere, he'll probably want more regular football. It's a very unlikely transfer, but I think a goalkeeper of that sort of age and with that experience behind them is probably someone, if they were going to do anything goalkeeper wise, is who they'd look for.
Yeah. I've got nothing really to say about that. It is we kind of said it's kind of a position that it would be hard to replace currently. So yeah, I don't think it's likely we'll see any change there in the next season or two. But I guess we'll see. So
Yeah. So defender wise, again, there's not a huge amount. I haven't really found much fullback wise. I'm also not sure if too much needs to be done, if I'm honest. Fullback wise, I like the look of Dalot. I think he's played quite well. I think Wan-Bissaka can be very good. He's very good defensively. I think again, because of the other players in the league, like your Trents, your Reece James, who have a bit more of the attacking side to them with their distribution, he kind of gets overlooked. That he's still a good defender, so I wouldn't automatically overlook him as well. And obviously Luke Shaw's bit with injuries, but he's also played well. I don't think fullback is really again a huge position that needs changing.
I agree. I agree.
So centre backs again, you have Varane already, top quality defender. You're going to keep him a centre back. I'm undecided on whether Maguire needs to go or if maybe they need to bring in a new system to help him a bit more. Or just needs some different coaching. I don't think he's a bad player.
I'm about to
That's
be
the thing.
biased here, and say I kind of agree. Looking back, like every time we finish a game, I'm like Maguire needs to go, but I agree that under a different system, maybe it'll work. But there's just so many moments where he's not doing the right thing, and I don't think it's we can't keep blaming the managers at this point. We can't keep blaming the system. Well, a bit he makes silly decisions in the moment. Oh, what game was it? I've completely forgotten the game. But he gave the ball away. Like De Gea kicked it out to him, and instead of trying to get the ball away or like showing any sort of willingness to push for the ball, he just kind of kicked it and we conceded from it. And he does stuff like that all the time. It's a hard thing to discuss. Like, we paid 80 million for him, and trying to get a player, trying to get rid of a player that you've spent 80 million for and has done nothing for the club.
Yeah, I think that's probably played him, is that you put that massive price tag on someone and you expect them to perform to that level where he isn't an 80 million pound defender. Like, he's a good player, but he's not at that level. And I think that probably hangs over his head a lot of having to try and live up to that value.
Yeah.
But the one person I would consider is Rudiger from Chelsea. Obviously a free agent in the summer, so we're gonna have to pay out for him. I see no reason why he wouldn't be open to moving to another Premier League team. My only issue around him is that obviously it looks like he may have been found out a bit playing in a system with 4 at the back against Brentford. Obviously, Chelsea usually have that 5 at the back system, and Ten Hag uses a 4 at the back system, so that might not work out for him of being as solid as he has been this season. But it's one of those where you're not having to pay out a transfer fee for him, and how well he has played this season, it's kind of hard to overlook him and not consider him.
I actually did have a player in mind for this, and it was Rudiger. No, like you definitely stole mine, because I knew he was going on a free, and when you think the best defenders in the Premier League this season, you're thinking your Van Dijks, your Diaz's, and your Rudigers and your Silvers. So it's an obvious one to go for, and I agree, and I think it's likely. I think it's a likely transfer. We can afford him. We could probably pay more money than Chelsea would pay him if he were to magically re-sign.
Also, I'm currently not sure where Chelsea stand with being able to re-sign players.
Neither am I.
I know obviously they're allowed to sell tickets. I don't know if they're allowed to do anything transfer-wise at the moment with what's going on behind the scenes. So whether it's even a possibility that they could keep on to him, I imagine if they could, they would want to, but whether they will, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens when all the Chelsea racists find out that Lewis Hamilton might be owning part of their club.
Moving swiftly on, I think this is probably the part where the main bulk of the work is going to come in for changing the team, which is the midfield. The big engine room that just has really been failing for Man United. I think that no one's really been playing well, and giving the distribution needed to the forwards, not protecting the back enough. So I think this is going to be a huge part of the rebuild, or should be a huge part of the rebuild.
I agree.
The first name is probably the obvious one that everyone's jumping to, which is Declan Rice. Which I think if they're able to get him would be a brilliant signing. The only problem I have is that the price tag is way too high.
The
transfer price itself, West Ham are stuck. I think it's like £150 million on him, which is ridiculous.
No players worth. Ronaldo's not worth. Messi isn't worth that.
I think it was that much. I want to make sure I haven't got too much, but either way, whatever it is,
it's a ridiculous.
In my opinion, so it's 100 million they're put on Rice.
That's
one says 100, one says 150, so it's somewhere in between that region, which is West Ham's way of saying they're not selling him, and that's also partly to do with the amount of time left in his contract, as well as will be making that so high. Yeah, I think it would be a good signing. The issue is the price of that. You'd be massively overpaying for someone, but also he's reliable. You know he can do it in the Premier League. You know he can do it on international level. We've seen that, so he has the skill set and
West Ham
to do
are
it.
Massive.
Again, another issue is more from a tactical point of view, is that he's been playing in a team that don't hold on to the possession of the ball. Which, if you look at Ten Hag's system at Ajax, that is very much they keep the ball and they're constantly putting in attacks. So it's whether he can do that in that system as well. Again, for England, it's not really a system that England have deployed either, of holding on to possession of the ball and dominating the possession, and playing that way. So whether he's able to fit into that system would be a question mark. So if they're willing to pay the money, then I think he's a great option. But I think it would be a very big risk putting that, like we've seen probably with Maguire, putting that price tag on someone and paying out that much money.
I agree that is definitely an option that probably will be talked about a lot. You'll see it a lot in the papers, maybe, of the rumor roundups. I think it's maybe I don't want to say it's a likely signing. It's probably kind of in the middle. It's kind of in the middle for me. I wouldn't say it's completely out of the realm of possibility, but I wouldn't say it's anywhere close to a certainty. So yeah, I think it's a position we need to think about as well. You know, we're losing players like Matic. McTominay isn't.
Not that Matic has played that most of the season, to be
No,
honest.
but
You still need to
McTominay
replace the
is,
numbers, and you need to bring Son in
gone.
anyway. Yeah, and he's not good enough anyway, personally.
Yeah,
and it's also very likely that Pogba's going.
yeah. So
Which
we
I
need to
think
think
is
about
deserving that
midfield.
he goes. I think it's about time he goes. He's been there 6 years and not really done anything. He's not lived up to his world class status.
The
So I
sad
think
thing
it's
is,
time to move it anyway.
the sad thing is, he is one of our better players. Like
He is. You
he
can't.
is.
You can't deny he's a good player. It's just for some reason it's not worked out coming back.
No, yeah.
And I don't think that's going to change at this point.
Well, maybe with Ten Hag, you never know, but I don't think he'll get that chance. I think he's long gone. We'll see.
One of the other names I have, which is like the cheaper option, probably is Ruben Neves from Wolves.
I like that one. That's saucy.
So I think he's a great player.
I've always liked
I
Neves.
highly rate him. The issue is the same with Rice, is of that he plays in a team that don't dominate the ball, don't dominate possession. So can he do what he does at Wolves in a new system in that way? That's the only question mark I'd have over him. Obviously, a much lower price tag than Rice could be more of a reason to go for him, as it's less of a risk with the investment. But obviously, it'd be one or the other, I believe. You obviously wouldn't bring both of them in.
No.
They pretty much do the same job. So he's the backup name I had, which I think is probably more likely. I can't see Rice going anywhere this summer. I think for him, it benefits him to stay at West Ham an extra season.
I think it's really likely as well. I think being country teammates with Ronaldo and Fernandez,
and Bruno,
that really.
Ten Hag's openly been a fan of him for years.
Yeah.
So it's someone he'd probably likely to want to bring in, which will help as well.
Yeah, I think he's a great footballer as well. He's shown what he can do at Wolves, even in a team that can be quite lackluster. He is someone that shines quite bright. You know, he is definitely, when you see Wolves, who do you think the best players are there? You think Ruben Neves, that man could fit into nearly any Premier League team and make some form of an impact. So I considered, I thought we might have signed him a season ago, or maybe 2 seasons ago, when Wolves were really looking good. But I would consider it likely as well, like you were saying. It's more likely than Rice's.
I think the best part of him as well is that he's still only 25 years old. He's not that old, yet he seems to have been with Wolves and performing well for so long. That he's still, even bringing him now, he'd have plenty of years ahead of him, which would be a huge benefit as well.
Yeah.
I have 2 more names for that midfield, or before we go on to more attacking players. I'm not sure what I think likely wise for this, but I like Yuri Tielemans. He's obviously said he's not signing a new contract at Leicester, so I think he would be good to pick up. He's obviously fallen off a bit towards the end of this season. He started off really well, and getting a few goals, and not seen as much of him on the back end of the season. But I liked him for quite a few years as a player. I think it'd be a good signing. Where he's going to end up, I'm not really sure. Cause it seems that he gets linked a bit with quite a few teams over the past season, of everyone seeming to want him. So how likely that is, I'm not sure. But it's more, I think this is more like I personally like him.
Yeah.
Not so much of a thinking about the manager and the system sort of thing. I'm not sure how that would work. But yeah, that's more for me, that I rate him as a player, so I think he could be a good signing.
No, I agree. I do rate him too. Whether he'd fit into the system we're going into, I don't know. I think, is this a shout? I think a player like James Maddison would probably fit that system more, but
He's not. It's not a
it's
viable
not a
classic
yeah,
game.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
The thing that brings Tielemans into this discussion is the fact that he's leaving,
he's
that his
leaving. Yeah.
contract is up.
So
I,
I wouldn't say it's kind of a Declan Rice situation, except without the price tag. I wouldn't say it's likely. I wouldn't say it's unlikely. It's kind of a signing that might happen depending on the choices Ten Hag makes when he actually gets to do this full time. So we'll see with that one. Yeah.
the final one I have, you might not be able to say much about him, so I'm not sure how much you'll know. Is Benacer from AC Milan.
Okay. Yeah. I know.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, so I think he'd work very well in this system. When he has played for Milan this year, he's looked very good. Again, I have question marks over him. The two ones being that Frank Kessie is leaving AC Milan this summer. It looks like he's agreeing to go to Barcelona, or has agreed to go to Barcelona.
All right.
So it looks like he'll probably be promised more game time at Milan, which might make him less likely to leave. The other one is that he hasn't had that full amount of play time. He hasn't been as consistent as maybe you'd like to see this season, to be able to see how he copes, and what exactly he's like. Obviously, when he has played, he's played well, but it might put a bit of a doubt in your mind if the current manager he's playing for doesn't back him so much to play him so often.
Right. Yeah.
However, I think the thing that will help Man United is that he's not earning a lot of money at the moment. So they might be able to entice him to come to them by slapping more on his wages. So I think compared to obviously the rest of the AC Man squad, the potential Man United squad, he's on a lot less money, so they could offer him a lot more without actually breaking their own bank too much, which could give them the benefit there.
Yeah.
I don't have too much more to say about him.
I like you were saying, I haven't really kept up with the ongoings of Milan, so I can't really comment much. But again, signings like that, I don't know. I think Ten Hag's more likely to go for people that aren't big name signings or like are a bit more on the periphery. Yeah, we'll go with that word.
Yeah, I
But
think
we'll see.
he's probably got to look like sort of the system that Man City and Liverpool employ, which is they don't always go for a big name signing,
Mm-hmm.
and that they look more for a player who fulfills a role
Yeah.
and and meets certain criteria that they like. I think that's probably in the more sort of place he's going to go for than a huge signing, which is why I've omitted one name from this list, which is Bellingham. Obviously, there's talk about other teams signing him and potentially bringing him back to England. But it's also money because I'd like Liverpool to sign him. I can't see us doing it personally because of how we do our business.
I don't think you
But he's just
necessarily
another
need
interesting
him
name to throw
either.
out there that he could potentially be an option. But again, it's another big price tag person.
Yeah.
With that bit of a risk.
I'd like to see Bellingham. I think, I don't know if this is a controversial opinion or not, but I think we shouldn't have gone for Sancho and we should have instead gone for Bellingham. Not that we had the
I
chance.
still rate Sancho.
I rate him, but I don't think having a winger, like we didn't need a winger at the time. It was just a signing.
Will in this new system. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Sancho will work very well under
Now-
Ten Hag because of the 4-3-3 he plays.
Well, now because we don't have a choice, but I'm saying when we were signing Sancho, it was a completely different beast. You know, we still had Solskjaer, so it was a situation. We need better midfielders than we needed strikers. Now I'm of a different opinion. Now I think we've got Ronaldo, all of our strikers, forwards, yeah. But I'm saying
a bit more later.
I'm saying as our forwards currently, so like our Rashfords, our if you count your Lingards, etc., they're lackluster. They haven't done anything. They haven't made an impact. I'm pretty sure Ronaldo scored most, if not all, of our last like 10 goals. I can't remember who else has scored. So
I don't think that's so much their problem though. I think that is more the midfield issue, that there isn't that solid midfield to allow them to.
Yeah, but that's my point. I think having that midfield going for a player like Bellingham should have been more of a priority than
Yeah,
Sancho was at the
yeah.
time. But yeah,
I think it's very unlikely anyone's going to sign him
yeah,
last
of
year. That's
course.
the problem.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. I agree.
staying in Bundesliga is my next name, which I think is a player who every single team in the world is probably
Are we
looking
still on
at, which is
midfield or are we forwards?
well, it's more attacking midfielder
Okay, all right.
now. So it's Nkunku
Okay.
from Leipzig. His goal contributions this season have been amazing. Um, he has been outstanding for them, a proper stand-up player, and
I think we've
I
been
can't
linked with him.
see.
I
I
think we've
think
been linked. Yeah.
all the top teams probably have,
Probably.
because he's been so good that every top team should really be looking at him.
Mm.
But again, it's more of a where will he end up if he does leave. I can see him leaving because although Leipzig seem to have this thing of they're able to bring in these great players and um like, do well with them, but they never seem to really get anywhere. They
Yeah.
still can't challenge Bayern Munich. Despite having these players, so they tend to move on.
And
So it's
nobody
probably
ever
likely
will.
this will be the case again. Um, so, but yeah, it's more of a case of where will he end up, and there'll probably be a huge price tag on his name as well because of the quality he's shown this season. So I don't have too much more to say about it. Just that it's one that everyone will be looking at. It's who can convince him. I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a player, and I think it's one of the players that's more likely from who we've talked about. Again, depends on price tag and who pursues him, but United's rebuilding, I think it's something that Ten Hag might be looking for. I think midfield is probably the area he'd want to improve the most. And that is definitely an option that I can see happening. So yeah.
So I think the problem will just be it'll be a fairly big price tag.
Yeah. Which if he's getting a
So
couple
it
hundred
depends
mil,
if
we'll
if what
see.
we've been told of the budget is true, then there's obviously a chance, but it depends on how likely that
Well,
is.
I don't know if I brought this up before, but apparently part of Ten Hag's agreement with United was that he wanted full control to be able to just chuck anyone out at any time and to bring in whoever he wanted.
Which is what he needs.
Which like he's not the traditional yes man that the Glazers saw and the board saw in Solskjaer. Same with Ranić, but obviously Ranić hasn't had a chance and he wasn't going to. He's getting a director position on the board. So
the problem with Ranić is that I think he works better more as a director than a manager.
Yeah, which is good. Which is what he's here for. We needed an interim manager. He did the job. All right, he didn't do a good job, but we were already halfway through a season, and we weren't going anywhere anyway. So I'm glad he's still staying on. I think he can add a lot behind the scenes, and I think that's something that I'm excited to see with him and Ten Hag actually putting their heads together and bringing in some new talent. But yeah, that's all I got to say on that part.
Yeah, so moving on to more attacking players. This is someone who I think. Oh, before actually quickly with the midfield, I also would like to see Donny van der Beek come back into the squad.
I think he's been told he
play
will.
more of a role this season.
I think Ten Hag has straight up said to him, "You will be on the team sheet. You will be like."
So I imagine it's someone who Ten Hag would like and would be able to utilize.
It's the start of his Manchester United career.
Well. And that will also help rebuilding that midfield as well.
Yeah.
So the next one is someone who Ten Hag might go back to Ajax to ready his old club for, which is Anthony, the winger. I think he's a great player. Performed well this season. Ajax, playing fairly often, and yeah, it's someone who obviously Ten Hag is familiar with, will know how to utilize, and will help Man United going forward. The only problem will be is that there's still a few years left in his contract, so that would obviously mean an increased price we're gonna have to pay for him. But it's probably will be helpful. It's less likely you need convincing to come because he's worked with Ten Hag. He's likely to want to work with.
The relationship's there, and as long as it's strong, I agree that is something that's like any player from Ajax that Ten Hag has a good enough relationship with, I think is a possibility. But again, price tags, contracts, it's a lot harder than just saying, yeah, I think we'll take them. I think he'll come with me.
Yeah.
But
Saying it's not, he can't go and just take everyone from your team. Obviously, that's not possible
yeah,
as well.
just tear
And
apart
obviously,
Ajax.
he's not the one making the decision for the player to leave anymore.
No,
So,
yeah.
so yeah, striker, the one left, is an interesting one because it entirely depends on what Ronaldo's plans are at the end of the season. Obviously, he has an extra year left in his contract. Whether he'll want to see that out is a whole different kettle of fish.
I think he will.
Um,
To interject here, I think he will see it out. And I'd even go as far as to say that after that season, like next season, I think he might even retire. I don't see Ronaldo in football for much longer. No
my
matter what anyone says, I still think he
problem,
can play. I just don't think he can play to the heights that he was playing at Madrid, early United. Of course, he's mid-30s now, but I don't see where his career goes after that season. Whether he stays on again, whether he resigns, or whether he does the thing where he goes. Well, he can't go to America, but whether he goes somewhere else. It is one that will be questioned in the next year. And
but I think it's just as much of if Ronaldo wants to stay as also if Ten Hag wants him to stay.
I think Ten
Because
Hag.
also he's he's a big personality, and I think the problem is Ten Hag needs to come in and be a no holds barred dominant manager. I think one of the main issues, what's caused a problem at Man United, is that these signings they're brought in, they're kind of raising the players up to be higher than the manager, um, and that they're more important. And I think that comes, it's a whole in the background thing of how the club works, that they are very heavily commercialized, and it's more about money. And they know that these big signings that will just bring in money because they'll bring people to games, they'll get shirts sold. But I think they need to retract from that. They need to completely overhaul that and bring a manager in who's going to basically control the players more. So I think that's been more of an issue over the past few years. That it's usually when you've seen a manager go, it's because the players stop playing for the manager.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think for
it's like
someone like
Pogba.
Ronaldo, is someone who can cause those
Yeah.
issues. Is that there's no denying how good quality is. Um, and the problem is that if as a manager you don't have the experience and the quality to tell him to do something different and what you need to do, and then don't have the quality to back that up, he's not going to listen to you because he's arguably the best in one of the best in the world, the best there has ever been. That if you turn around and try something to him and then don't have the ability to back it up, he's not going to listen.
Yeah.
So it does work both ways. The name I've come up with is Nunes from Benfica. Obviously, seeing him play against Liverpool in the Champions League, he's looked very impressive. And if it wasn't for the ability of Liverpool's high line defence to trap him offside, he could easily have scored about 6 goals, I think, against us. He looks impressive, and would be someone who would be very good to bring in for a number of teams. I know Newcastle were looking at him, and he snubbed them already.
Yeah. I'm not
So
surprised. I know unrelated, but the Newcastle rebuild, I feel like all the Newcastle fans and even their own board were like, all right, we're rich now. Every player will want to come to us. I don't think that's necessary. I think we'll see a couple years of them getting a couple players in. Like they got Trippier. They've still got players like St. Maximin if he stays there. And I
yeah,
think they've got a solid squad, but I don't
I
know.
think this is what will help Man United though, is that
Yeah.
despite the fact they've not performed overly well over the past few seasons, they'll still have that pull on players. because it's such a big club
because it's
that
United,
you'll have younger players who would have grown up seeing the good the amazing Man United
Manchester.
team, and would want to go and play there,
Yeah.
and because they'll hold that like team like in their heart sort of thing, and they've looked up to them that they want to play for them.
Mm.
Another player I like is Osimhen, Napoli. Again, the problem is going to be the price tag on him. He's not long moved there. He's basically going to get Champions League football where he is. So it would be a huge ask to move him away from that to come to Man United, who are basically very unlikely to get Champions League football. So there'll be a hard pull from them.
Sean, it's not
So
unlikely. It's probably
it's
impossible at this point.
But that's where it comes back to the
Yeah.
Man United still have that pull on players that even without the Champions League, they still have a chance of bringing top players in, of the players who want to come, and especially with having Ten Hag come in, that they'll see it's a process to rebuild and that there's probably future potential. So if they can sit out one season, it could be worth it, and then season after, 2 seasons after, that they'll still have that ability to bring players in. That's the only thing that has them on their side.
Yeah. Whereas, like, it's like Liverpool, 30 years without a league title, you were still able to bring players in. Now, yeah, you had a rebuild, you brought in players. Salah, all right, we didn't know how good Salah was going to be. For Liverpool, turned out to be one of the Premier League greats. Who would have thought? But any team that has a history like Liverpool, like United, like Arsenal, can have that pull if they're willing to spend that money.
The only final point I have is the ability they might have to raid relegating teams getting relegated. So this is heavily dependent on 2 teams, which are Leeds and Everton. If one of them get relegated,
Right.
of that they could look to raid them. Obviously, Leeds is a bit of a a bit of an awkward one. Obviously, with the rivalry between the 2 teams, that it might be unlikely for players to move. The 2 that I'd look at are Calvin Phillips and Rafinha. Obviously, Calvin Phillips could be that role of like Rice and Neves, which if they get relegated, they could be able to get a bargain price. The main issue with that is obviously Phillips is a born and bred Leeds. So whether he'd want to move to Man United is a big question. But I think he's definitely a player that's showing quality and be able to do that job. And obviously, if they do end up going down, it's a big opportunity for a team to pick him up. The same with Rafinha. He's been amazing for Leeds. But obviously, he has less of that connection that he may be more willing to move. But also has shown his class. And then the main one for Everton, you're probably going to be like, what the fuck? Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
I'm not like, what the fuck. He's not had a good. He has he even played.
So he started well. The problem is injuries.
Yeah,
That's the big question mark over him, is that time off from injury and how he'd be able to come back from that. Obviously, we saw that when he had that spell at Everton where he was basically scoring every game.
yeah. He reminds me of when we had Danny Welbeck, and I mean that in the sense of he was in the right place, the right time, scored the right goals, and he's just one of those players that I can see working in a system that Ten Hag could bring in.
I think he also brings a whole other dimension to how he can play.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, he's a big aerial threat that if
that's what I mean. Like his heading is immense,
and like he's gonna be difficult to defend against.
Yeah.
So you then have that ability to play different systems, and if something's not working against a team, you can bring him in to completely change the game and change the way you attack. So he may not be like a name that people jump to think, oh, let's sign him, but it could be one that works out.
Well, without Anthony Martial now, with Rashford not at the top of his game, and whatever happens to Ronaldo, even if Calvert-Lewin came in and Ronaldo stayed, or we picked up another striker, he'd still be a good rotation option. He'd still be a player that would play games, who would come on when we need that extra goal.
So, and just gives a whole new dimension to the team.
Yeah, because that's what a lot of teams have over. You look at Manchester City, their second team could be a first team. You know, like squad depth is so important, especially now. And aren't they bringing in 5 subs next season, like
Yes.
fully? Yeah, and
Yeah.
having that squad depth is even more important because you can change out way more players, and you could bring out a whole new squad, pretty well, half a new squad, and completely change your game. And I think that adds a lot to the game. We might see some interesting results next season in the Prem, but I think squad depth is so important, and Calvert-Lewin would be a player that could fill a role like that. So,
Yeah. So I think we've obviously come up with quite a few names here. I think the thing that probably Man United fans and the owners probably need to think about this going forward is that this isn't a quick fix. Obviously this rebuild will take some time, and it may be a case that they bring in a couple of people this transfer window, and then obviously look through January and the next transfer window, and it might be a case that you don't get the results immediately next season. Obviously, it depends on the players being brought in. But I think that's the main thing going forward is that they need to treat it as a long-term rebuild.
yeah.
Just
It's like that with any
overturn
club.
these players
Yeah.
and not be too rational. Because I think whilst the problem is you could easily fall into the trap if you bring Ten Hag in, let's say January next season, you're still sitting around 6th, 7th sort of thing. And you rush to get rid of him, and the players lose faith in the manager again.
He
And
needs the chance that Solskjaer had. He needs that time.
Yeah,
You know, they were too lenient on Solskjaer. You know, he probably should have
I
gone
think
way before. But
it's as much on the players as it is the owners and the fans as well
Yeah.
to give the time he needs. Because as a Liverpool fan, I hate to say this, but this could be a very exciting project for Man United. It could be the possibility of coming back in and to be able to challenge with Liverpool, Man City, which I want. But
it's
from a neutral footballing point of view, it can be seen as quite exciting at what could happen here.
everyone loves competition in any sport. People probably won't care about this point I'm going to bring up, but the NFL. Look how much better a division can be in that when every team has looks like they could make the playoffs. Like my team, Denver Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Chargers, all 4 of those look like they could be playoff teams, and it makes it so much more interesting. Everyone's eyes on that. So imagine that being the Prem, where all the teams at the top actually look competitive, and it's not a 2-horse race every season with Chelsea about 10 points behind. You know, like imagine that in the Prem. You wouldn't get people saying the Prem isn't what it used to be. The Prem isn't even that good. You get people saying, "Wow, I love watching the Prem. The Prem is top quality football. This is what I want to see." And at the end of the day, that's what any football fan wants to see. I obviously I want to see that because it's my club, but it's something that I think would improve football as a whole, improve the Prem as a whole. And not that it needs more eyes, but I feel like the past few seasons, whether it's COVID related or not, we've seen a bit of a dip in football. I haven't seen the interest there. I don't know if it's just me as well, being a bit uninterested.
I think it might just be you.
It might be me. I'm not saying
still there.
I'm not saying there's not still an interest. Of course, there's still an interest, but I think with introductions to stuff like VAR, and things like that, and COVID not having a great impact, I feel like football needs something to energize it, especially in England. And I think a bit more of a competitive league would push it up there. I wasn't trying to say there's no interest in football. It's the number one sport in Europe, I would assume still, unless something's come about. But I can see something like this having a bigger impact on football as a whole than just United if it's done right. So,
Yeah. So this went on longer than I thought it was going to. Yes. Let us know in the comments who you think Man United should sign. And it'll be interesting to see how this summer goes and what's able to happen over at United.
And if you have any other video ideas like this or anything at all, leave us a comment and tell us what you want to see, and we'll get to it. So remember to like and subscribe.
And hopefully we'll see you in the next video.